Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. We just wanted to welcome you to our composting class. Yay. So I'm very excited. We were able to put this on thanks to Laura Robertson, our town planner, and from a grant that she got from NYSERDA. So I'm just going to hand it over to her to give you the rules.
Yeah. And I just want to thank Ellen Daviero and Mickey Visolid. They managed to procure most of this stuff. I just gave them the grant budget, and they pretty much did everything. And I want to thank Kyla. She's going to be our trainer tonight, and she's got a lot of materials for you guys. We'll take questions at the end. And we're just really excited to get you started on your composting journey. So with our grant, what we wanted to do is make sure that everybody who comes tonight can leave if they registered. I know a couple of you are just learning, and I really appreciate that you came too as well. But the people who registered can actually leave with a system that'll work, fully work. The countertop compost bins, they're really useful because you put them on your countertop and you put your scraps in there. You don't want to run out to your compost bin all day long. So everybody gets a countertop. It's very key to making your composting work. So we have 25 of those, or however many people we have on this one. It's not quite 25. So we have enough for everybody to take a compost countertop scrap collector. And then we've got, I think, because it's slightly more this tonight, we've got 11 earth bins. 11 earth bins, and then I think 10, 20, it's like probably 15, 16 of the geo bins. What we'll ask you to do because of the grant, so the grant is very greenhouse gas and energy reduction oriented. Composting takes a lot of weight out of the waste stream, so that's the energy saving typically. And the greenhouse gas reduction is twofold. It's not as much weight, so not as much emissions from your vehicles, but also when you put the compost in the soil absorbs more greenhouse gas. So that's really the point of the grant, is to get energy reduction because it's NYSERDA, and then greenhouse gas reduction. So when you come up, if you choose a geo bin, Trish will ask you if you want to get in the drawing for the stirrers. So we had limited funds. We bought as many stirrers as we could. If you decide to go for the geo bin, you can get yourself in a raffle for the stirrers. According to Ellen, they're amazing. So I've never tried them. I'm excited to see how they work. Feel free to share feedback. Earth machines are they're their own little thing. They're their own earth machine. So when you come up, you got to take the pledge, you got to get your countertop, and then you come over here and choose. Try to be respectful of who's around, your best choice. And then if you don't get your best choice, don't worry about it. They all work. They're all good systems, and we can work with you and help with you whichever one you get. So without any more questions, take it away, Kyla.
Awesome. All right, we're gonna do a mic test. How we doing? We good? We good? You can hear me. I'm not hurting your ears or you're straining to hear me. All right, I'm gonna try and maintain this distance. Let me know if we're falling out of line here. So thank you, Ellen, for just, my goodness gracious, reaching out and absolutely pioneering this entire thing. She showed up in my office and asked me to teach a couple composting classes. And I said, that's great. It's clearly turned into so much more for the better, which is awesome for you all. So thank you, Laura, for working on that grant and everything. So this is super exciting. I don't do much in Niskayuna, so I'm really excited to be hanging out here a little bit more and really getting to know you all and helping you start this composting journey, bring Niskayuna down in our greenhouse gas emissions. So yeah, I guess I can start with kind of who the heck I am, right? My name's Kyla Pecoraro. I'm the recycling and composting educator for Cornell Cooperative Extension of Schenectady County. I work very closely with Schenectady County. I work on a bunch of different programs. You'll probably see me playing in the compost pit at the Sustainable Living Center in Central Park. Anybody been there? Couple people, come hang out sometime. It's beautiful. Well, when the sunshine is out, it's very beautiful. So yeah, we're going to jump into this. We're going to talk about composting. Basically, we're going to do a little bit of an overview of basically every component of composting. We'll do questions at the end just to make sure that we stay kind of on track here. But I will ask right now, any questions before we start? Okay, I guess we'll dive in, huh? So I'm going to be kind of running back and forth to change our slides here. Can everybody see that all right? You don't have to be able to read it. Promise I'll read it to you. So we're going to start with what is compost? I know you might not be able to read it. Maybe you can. Anybody want to take a guess what compost is? Anybody? Do we not know, or are we scared to say it out loud? Nice. Decomposed organic material. The answer's right in front of you. I promise I wasn't trying to sneak that on you. All right. So compost is decomposed organic material. So that is a very general term. So that's organic material is anything that once was living, right? So it can be food, it can be yard waste, it can be the new thing is animal mortality composting. I mean, farmers have been doing it forever, but now it's kind of hitting the mainstream, right? It's the new cool thing, animal mortality composting. No, nobody's, it's dead animal composting. Yeah. Once living, not anymore. We're going to compost it. So compost, humans do human composting. Some people get really queasy about that, so I try not to bring it up. So don't worry, we're not talking about that tonight. We're talking about food scraps recycling, food scraps composting. So there are four main pillars that I talk about whenever I talk about composting. Four main reasons that we need to be talking about composting and doing composting. Number one, planet Earth. It's all of our homes. It's one thing every single human has in common. Every single animal, plant, we all have it in common, right? We're all here. We need to take care of it. We all know that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here tonight. So this little diagram right here, that yellow is a little tricky to see. Sorry about that. So our Earth sits on the pillar, right? We're talking about a NYSERDA grant, how we need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And that's exactly what our arrows represent here. So I'm going to give you a little earth science lesson really quick, if that's okay with you all. Yeah? Okay, cool. Don't worry about taking notes. There's no quiz. I absolutely promise you. So basically the sun emits solar radiation, right? It comes in through our atmosphere, it hits our Earth, and it's reflected back. Where it's reflected back to changes based on the atmosphere, based on human activity. That's the line where the climate change denial comes in, right? So people are saying it's not human caused. It is. There's evidence. So it's really interesting to see the change in greenhouse gas emissions and concentrations in our atmosphere over the last 100 or so years. So the yellow arrows are radiation coming in. That purple arc, the blue arc, is our atmosphere. And then all the little squiggly lines is the radiation that makes it out. So climate change, the greenhouse gas effect, everybody familiar with that term, the greenhouse gas effect? It actually keeps our Earth alive, keeps us alive. We need the Earth's warmth and we need the radiation to stay alive. It sustains life on Earth. So we need that. What we also need is a healthy balance of incoming and outgoing. Greenhouse gas effect is the concentration, the high concentration of greenhouse gases in our atmosphere that actually keep the radiation in and focused on Earth, which is why we're getting warming, right? It's not letting enough radiation escape. And as we pump fossil fuels into the air, we end up exacerbating that effect. So our most tangible way of dealing with climate change is food scraps. Does anybody know what the percentage of household trash is food scraps or compostable material that's sent away? Yes. yes. And the amount that actually gets composted? Very low. Unfortunately, very low. We have a lot that we can be doing. So when we send food scraps to the landfills, what they do is they break down anaerobically, and that means without oxygen. So if we're just crushing it below, I always ask little kids, what do you do with our garbage? And they say, well, we throw it in the garbage. I'm like, now we're talking in circles. Where does it go after that? Well, the custodian takes it away, right? Okay, great. And then what? Goes to the landfill. What's a landfill? It's a pile of trash, but it's not just a pile of trash. It's actually a big hole in the ground. We're filling the land with trash. Trash, right? I have a student of mine who calls it misallocated resources, which is my absolute favorite because it absolutely is. It's stuff we're throwing away and we're actually polluting our earth. When things break down anaerobically, they send out methane, a very potent greenhouse gas, into our atmosphere. It warms our earth. It causes all sorts of chaos. We're already seeing it, right? These effects are not new. They're just worsening. So when we compost, we can break things down aerobically with air, and that cuts down our greenhouse gas emissions. It actually stops it from producing methane. It's a way more sustainable means of managing our waste. So that's our first pillar. We hyped yet? All right. Our second one is the resources it takes to produce food. Think about it. We're producing things on farms, right? Agricultural fields. A lot of the times it's transported from far away lands and brought here. I mean, we try to buy local when we can, but 10 to 12 months out of our year are winter, so we can't always be growing. So think about it. I mean, think about the farmer's time. They're waking up at what, 3, 4 a.m. to go and tend their fields. It's their time. It's the money that they're putting into growing. It's the natural resources, the wind, solar, and soil energy that's going into growing things. It's harvesting all of the, consider even the fossil fuels that run the farm equipment. It's all part of it. It's all used while we're growing our food. And then they're shipping it, right? So that's all. These are all resources that go into putting food on our shelves, right? So when we throw things away, we're throwing away resources, very plainly. Another student who talks a lot about bananas. It's her like relatable things for the kids. She's like, anybody ever slip on a banana peel? That's 50 cents. I mean, if you pay $1 for a banana and you eat the inside, 50 cents. The peel, 50 cents, right? That brings us to our next pillar, economics. Nobody likes to waste money, right? So along with the resources, we're also throwing away money. If you buy a banana for $1 and you only eat half, I mean, that's 50 cents you're wasting. And think about an entire bunch of bananas and then every other food that we're throwing away, right? You're not eating the whole thing. You're wasting any of it. You're throwing away money. Plain and simple. And finally, this is my favorite. We're working on a very big composting project over in the city of Schenectady with the school district. And we were tasked with making a logo for our new program. And we were able to use a similar element to this tree and leaves and all of that. But it really sends a powerful message, right? So we're growing things up and not only are we growing nature, we're helping the planet, we're actually growing each other. You can see there's people actually holding up that tree. Those are people. So it's really important that we build a healthy community that's focused on environmental initiatives and consciousness around our impact on the planet. Along with money, I do have to say that the less you throw away, the less you pay for hauling costs, and you also don't have to spend an entire Saturday like I did last week shipping compost back and forth in the back of a pickup truck to your house. If you can just grow it on site. All right, so now we're going to talk about how do we compost, right? I mean, that's why you're all here. I mean, aside from listening to me rant about the environment, which is my favorite pastime. So step number 1, you're going to choose a method. We're going to talk about these 2 methods specifically at the end. But right now I'm going to talk you through the different methods that are available to you if you want to use them in combination with these, or if you'd like to maybe bypass these. I don't know, whatever you feel like you want to do. I would take advantage of what's here though. It's a pretty sweet deal. So first, on the left here, our first option is a hauler. Now, the capital region is a complicated place. We actually don't really have competition in our hauling market. There's only one hauler for residential service here, Food Scraps 360. Diana runs that business. She's amazing, incredible. Small team though, doesn't have, we don't have the capabilities to have Diana come up and pick up everybody's food scraps. So if anybody's thinking about starting a compost hauling company, now's your time to shine. But yeah, so your option number 1 is to haul it away, have somebody else do it, right? Along with that is drop-off sites. We actually run a few drop-off sites in Schenectady. We have one at the Sustainable Living Center. We're going to have one at Fair Avenue Urban Farm. We're going to have one at Vale Avenue Urban Farm. We're going to have one at Hewlett Street Urban Farm. So they're kind of like right in the city, trying to help folks out who might not be able to drive long distances for those kinds of things. But those are run by myself and my team of volunteers. So it's a pretty fun time cleaning out buckets if anybody wants to hang out. Our second option is to do pile composting. This was when Ellen came to me and said, teach a class, would you? And I said, yes, but we're going to have to build 50 wooden bins ourselves and hand them out. And she said, okay, sounds good to me. So we've since scrapped that idea, which I appreciate. We've found better options for you all. But our community composts that we actually run in the city are all these 3-bin composts. So there's a 1-bin example. They're made out of wood. They're lined with 1/4-inch hardware cloth to keep out the pests. A lot of them have drop-down doors. We have an active pile, a curing pile, and a finished pile. Try to keep things organized and moving, as organized as you can stay in composting. This is a 1-bin system. You can either do literally just 1 bin. You could do 3. You could do a 3-sided one. Some people just throw it in a pile on the ground. I don't care. I'm not the compost police. If you're making it work, make it work, right? Your third option is a tumbler. I'm sure we've all seen these. This is what you think of when you think of composting, right? So you think of like the big barrels that you like crank, right? How many of you have one? Okay, that's what I thought. So, because my first instinct is to trash talk them. So, I'm not going to do that. But they are a very slow process. How many of you that have had them had success with them? Nicely done. Takes a lot of patience. You're probably a very patient human. I'm not very impatient. I can't do that. They take forever, but they work if you have patience. So also an option. They're a little nicer if you don't want to be like bending down and stuff. They're usually raised up. It does take a minute. Like you might need an extra hand to help you out turning it. And now that composting is cool, right? I was like rooting for it, but now they're expensive because people know that people want to compost. So keep an eye on that. Your other 2 options. So these options over here are actually what I would call pile composting. They work in different ways. We'll talk about those in a little bit. Our little blue-gray guy over here is actually a vermicompost bin. Anybody have one of those? Anybody tried one of those? Anybody interested in worms? Used to have one? Ellen, do you have one? Do you want a worm bin? Oh, no, you keep them inside. They live inside. They are pets. If you don't name them, it's cruel. All right. So I've got 2 worm bins in my office right now. My coworkers are not happy. One I'm babysitting from the school district in Schenectady. The other one is mine that I'm trying to like get going, right? They don't smell, contrary to popular belief. They're very small. They literally slide under my desk at work. So some people don't even know I have them, including my boss. So the other part about vermicompost is that you can see the little spigot on there. Is that that's worm tea? It's a worm tea spigot. No, not doing it for you. No human composting, no worm tea. Got it. Well, it's really rich fertilizer. So if you want to keep worms, I can absolutely provide you with some. I got it. I got a person. I got a worm dealer. On our last method here, the little green, our little recycling one, Canva didn't really have a picture for bokashi composting, but it is a method. It's actually rooted in, Mickey and I talked about this. It's rooted in Japanese culture of fermentation, right? So think kimchi, right? Everything's fermented and everything's delicious in Japanese culture. But yeah, so bokashi is a method of, it's kind of like making pre-compost. It's indoor. You basically stack 2 buckets. It's a little more complex than I'm making it out seem. I am doing a bokashi class this summer if anybody's interested, because I'm going to learn how to do it too, because it's a little complicated. But you can compost meat and dairy, no problem, in your house. There is no smell. It smells like Italian dressing. It's not like offensive, right? Vinegar-ish. And it's a way to get things broken down enough to throw them into your compost pile, like meat and dairy. Or you can trench compost, which you can put that fermented stuff right in the ground and it'll break down right next to your plants. So those are your methods. So you have to choose one. You're all here, so you all chose pile composting, whether you knew it or not. Step 2, you're going to begin collecting your greens and browns. Okay, greens and browns, might have heard it before if you know a little bit about composting. Our greens and browns are our ingredients, right? So our greens are our food scraps. That's our main ingredient, star of the show, food scraps. Our greens are things like, think green, think anything wet. They're also called our wet ingredients. And your browns, so we got our wet over here. That's going to be, that's your kitchen countertop composter right there. It's in the PowerPoint. Yep. And then over here are your browns. So think leaves, wood chips are my favorite. You can use things like sawdust. You can use literally hunks of wood. It doesn't really matter as long as it's a carbon input. And that's going to be your, probably the biggest issue that I have with people are like, my compost isn't working. So our step 3 is to mix the ingredients. It's our ratio. So you want to have about 3 times more carbon than you have nitrogen input. So if you're going to dump, one of these guys of food scraps, you're going to want to fill this 3 times with wood chips and dump it on top. And that's the biggest thing. So on the back of your little guide, there's a little troubleshooting, which I find to be very important. The troubleshooting, tell me if I'm lying. It's definitely there, right? Okay. It's like I remember putting it in. So our troubleshooting, it'll be your key once you get started, right? Number 1 issue, pile's wet, mushy, smelly. You need to add carbon. Like 9 times out of 10, people are like, my compost won't break down. And I'm like, that's a tragedy. You need leaves. That's it. It's really a quick fix. Or maybe you ignored it. We all do it. You got to turn it. You got to get air in there. The way compost works is the little microbes that are like all over, right? They live in our soil. They live in our food. They live in everything. Organic matter has microbes. When things start breaking down, it's the microbes kind of literally consuming it and breaking it down into smaller and smaller pieces. That's why it looks like dirt after, because there's no plant walls left, things like that. They're breaking down, right? So let me keep up with my PowerPoint. You're going to water, turn, and monitor because microbes are living things. You have to give them air. You have to give them water, right? And then you have to pay attention to them. So you get out your big old microscope. You step up on your ladder. You put your compost underneath. You monitor, okay? Because people, they really do. They ignore it. And I'm like, you can't just, I said the worms are pets, but your compost, like, it might also be a pet. I don't know if anybody's pet averse here. I have 3 rabbits. They are also composters. I put everyone to work. Yeah. So yeah. So you're going to water, turn, and compost, or compost. You're going to do that too. You're going to water, turn, and monitor because those are going to be your 3 most important steps. So the steps that people forget about, right? You do have to water it. If it's a hot, dry summer, you might have to water your compost. It seems a little weird, but you got to do it. You want to turn it, you got to get that air in there. Like we talked about right at the beginning, that climate effect, right? So the greenhouse gas effect, we want to break things down aerobically with air, not anaerobically without air, because then we're emitting greenhouse gases and we're actually just adding to the problem, right? So if we're going to do this, we want to do it right? Yeah, come on. All right, so we're going to water, turn, monitor, and then we can do what with our compost? What are we doing with our compost, guys? Put it in the garden? What else are we doing? On the yard? Sure. Do you know that compost actually fixes soil? Yeah, I think pretty much all of the world's problems would be solved if we could just cover the entire earth in an inch of compost. There's new studies coming out. Really, really just absolutely leading edge stuff about compost actually binding to lead in the soil and making it so it's inaccessible to be consumed and poison us, right? So there's a lot of really, really great benefits to compost. So I can't state it enough. I love compost. I love playing in the dirt. But I guess before we even get there, it's really important that we think about food waste prevention in the first place. food waste, it's ingrained in us, right? It's honestly, it's not something you should feel bad about. It's just something that I ask you to be conscious of, right? It's not like, oh, like I hate throwing things away. Like I get like that. But that's not what it's about. It's about saying, okay, how do we not waste it in the first place, right? But if we're going to waste it, let's do it right. So, I wasn't really sure what to put on this slide. Put some people having a picnic. I don't know. I'm thinking things are gonna go. Invite your friends over. Let's have people over to help you finish the food that's gonna go bad, right? Let's be feeling a little bit better about expiration dates. They're not as scary as they might seem. They're mostly, suggested. They're not, the clock doesn't strike midnight and things go bad, right? So be conscious of that, right? And I probably shouldn't be saying this out loud because I actually don't know the guidelines on that, but I do know that our food educators do make a point to say, it's not like it goes bad. Proper storage, right? Keeping our veggies and water in the fridge, right? Those are just little things that we can do to make sure that we're keeping things as fresh as possible, feeding ourselves really well. And then if we can't finish it all, then we're feeding the earth really well, right? These are the important pillars I'd love for you guys to take home. And I'll stop droning on about compost now. So thank you all for coming out. It really means so much that you're even here, right? First step, admitting you have a food waste problem. Second step, leaving here with a composter. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk through kind of the stuff that we have and kind of make sense of it for you. So when you leave, there's an actionable plan, right? You're not just going to throw all this stuff like in your basement, hopefully. If you do, call me, I'll come get it. All right, so first up, like Laura mentioned, is our kitchen scraps collector. So the way composting kind of typically works, and these are not laws, you can change them. So the way compost typically works is, I'm chopping up an onion, right? I got the onion skins. What I do is I take my countertop composter, I open it up, I keep it open while I'm chopping, while I'm doing all this stuff, while I'm cleaning out my fridge, right? And I'm throwing things in there as I go. Afterward, I put the top on. The fun part about these, and you shouldn't buy a countertop food scraps collector without these, is this. See in there, there's a black little, that's a carbon filter or charcoal filter. Very vital to keeping smell down. If you don't want to hate your compost, you need this. So these are really nice, and they actually come with a replacement, which is cool. They last a really long time. They last, I'd say 6 to 8 months, but if it starts getting smelly or if you get food scraps on here and it starts getting gross, it's time. Yes, it does. If they can't detect it, they will not come. So yes, make sure you keep these, and you can order more online. This metal guy will last a long time. These, you'll probably go through both of them in a year and a half. It depends how often you use it, how smelly your stuff is, how clean you keep it. I'm very messy in the kitchen, so mine get like coated in food scraps. So I need new ones like way more often. So try to avoid being like me. So that's a really beautiful thing. So then once your bucket is full and you say, nice job, you take it out to either your compost in your yard, or some people like myself, I actually have a 5-gallon bucket that I keep in my garage where it's a little cooler, right? And I empty the bucket in there. And then when that's full, I bring it out. Now, why do I delay the process and make it harder on myself? I don't know. There is no reason for it. You don't need to do that. I think that we eat a lot of fresh veggies that, we're cutting the stems off of, things like that. So we fill ours up pretty quickly. So going out to the compost, like literally like every other day is a little much. So we do the 5-gallon bucket to give us a little more space. So that's an option as well. Don't need to. Or you can just take this straight to your compost pile, which I highly suggest. The 5-gallon bucket also helps with making trips outside in the winter. Like I said, 10 to 12 months of winter is a little much for me. So if you can try to just limit those trips, that's an option as well. Okay, so we've got our kitchen composter. Oh, and boom, y'all have a magnet. If you don't, see us after. So this is great. I made these for our community compost station. And same list here. But Ellen really liked my design, which I appreciated. And so she asked me just to slap the Tananiski Unit logo on here and change a couple things. So here we are. So my email's on the bottom of there, which is like, could be crucial for you. Maybe you'll leave here and forget about me. I won't forget about any of you. But my email is schenectadyrecycles@cornell.edu. Feel free to email me your composting questions. I actually way prefer answering those than like setting up appointments and everything. So yeah, definitely email me if you have questions. But everything that you can and can't compost is on here, subject to, you know, if you already compost and you're like, well, I already compost metal, like I'm gonna keep doing it. Like my suggestion is like, don't. But like, you know, do you? We don't suggest meat and dairy. I will never forget the time that we turned the compost after trying to break down chicken patties from a lunchroom. It was atrocious. Save yourself. Don't do it. So meat and dairy, avoid it. Yeah, that was brutal. Pits and stems are totally fine. The best thing that you can do for yourself, again, like save yourself, like learn from my mistakes, is to chop everything up. Chop it up, please, as small as you can. You'll have compost in no time. If it's bigger stuff, it'll take forever to break down. Some people, I'm just going to address this now because I have a feeling somebody will ask. Somebody always does, but y'all are thinkers. I read your mind a bit. Citrus, the amount that you put in, you should be fine. As long as you maintain your carbon to nitrogen ratio, right? Way more carbon than nitrogen. You shouldn't have to worry about pH and things like that. So let that be at the absolute back of your mind. If you're really interested, we can test your compost after it's done and we can like send it off to the lab and we'll get results for you. Really, we will at Cornell. Like we do stuff like that. But you'll be fine. Yeah, let me see if there's anything else on here. I think everything else seems fine. The kicker of it all, plastics, compostable plastics. They're not compostable. Don't do it. Compostable plastics are made of things that have not been studied enough to know whether you're putting microplastics and chemicals into the ground. I'd avoid it. The other part of it is that your backyard compost will not get hot enough for long enough to break them down properly. They can sometimes be broken down in an industrial facility. Some of you may know Bethlehem as a composting facility. They do take those. I've spoken to the director of that facility over the last month, and he is starting to change his mind on allowing those in because they don't break down. We pulled compostable bags out of our community compost that went in last July, August, and they're still there. And our pile did break down really well. So just don't do it. Don't buy it as a replacement. Buy reusable instead, right? So avoid it in the first place. Don't make waste in the first place. All right. Shall we proceed? Question? Yeah, what's up, Mickey? Oh, smart.
Oh. I know you can compost newspaper. Can you compost the glossy inserts? Okay. I know long ago you couldn't because of the ink.
Right. Yes. Try not to let any glossy print into your compost. That is, we want to avoid that. Anything like newspaper, anything, copy paper even. We shred paper at our office all the time. I actually bring it right to our community compost and it goes in there because otherwise it gets trashed. So, question? Yes. Here you go.
So I saw that hair is on the compostable list. Never heard of that.
Okay.
I mean, does it break down quick enough? And what about dog hair? I mean, any type of hair? Really? Okay. All right.
So the question was about hair, so hair's on the list, right? We're human composting of worms. Are we doing hair? Hair, yes, we are. Okay, we're okay with hair. All right, we're gonna talk about hair. You can absolutely compost hair. It will break down. It is organic material, right? So that's what we talked about. Anything that was once living, and you know that it was once living and then it's kind of dead now, right? Mine's not looking too good with this like humidity. But yes, you can compost hair. Animal hair, we love to see it. Compost your pet's hair. Might as well, right? What else are you doing with that? Some people make it into like little felt animals.
You mentioned rabbits before. I have guinea pigs, and I've been composting their whole stuff. But the thing I wanted to ask is, it says no pet waste, and I didn't know if guinea pigs and rabbits counted or not.
Beautiful question. Beautiful question. So I mentioned having rabbits before. Yes, I have 2, now 3 as of last week. Send help. They all eat each other and they need to be kept separately. So it's a production at my house. So pet waste. Rabbits and guinea pigs are herbivores. Okay. Herbivores. Yes. Green light. Go. Anything that eats meat. No. Dogs, cats. Absolutely not. Don't do it. It's nasty. Again. But yeah. Anything that is an herbivore. So, I mean, you probably hear of like cow manure being composted, right? Yes. Herbivores. They can absolutely do it up. That's great for your garden. My partner has taken to literally just dumping the bags right in my garden. I don't know how I feel about that, but I mean, they don't smell so good, you know what I mean? But it will compost. It's a great nutrient additive for your garden. Definitely herbivores for sure. Hold on, I have to make a journey.
So you already know I have the spinning one, and then I have one similar to that. It's got a little door, but I have a lot of problems with animals chewing on the plastic, and so I didn't know if you wanted to address that. And my husband and I always argue about eggshells and lint.
Great questions. All right, animals chewing plastic. I don't know why they do it. It's not tasty. They do it at our compost as well. I unfortunately don't have a solution yet to the animals chewing on the plastic. You can make like very non-harmful deterrents with a little bit of cayenne in the squirt bottle. So we're going to try that in our garden this year. Squirrels are crafty and they don't really care. Yes. I'm hoping that spraying that around the edge will deter. We'll see. I bought these self-service bins for our community compost, and I was so confused because the squirrels literally were eating the plastic. But I was confused because on the other side of the fence is an open compost bin. That's what I was confused about. Yeah, not that they were chewing. I'm like, yes, you want the food, right? But there's food right there. Like, what are you doing? So I've not come up with a solution yet. If anybody, let me know. Shoot me an email. Connect to recycles@cornell.edu. All right. Lint. Don't compost it. Anybody know why? Microplastics. Say that again.
It was on the news a few years back. I don't remember which local TV station.
Sure. Yeah, it was on the news before. They said you could. Love that. It was absolutely, totally acceptable a few years ago. I mean, really, not even that long ago. Yeah. The whole microplastics thing is very new to the world. Our clothes, every time you wash them, shed microplastics, and then your dryer collects them. So unless you're buying 100% all organic clothes, like organic cotton, everything, no lint. Eggshells. Yes. There we go. See, I knew somebody would ask it. All right. Eggshells. Love eggshells. They don't break down very easily. You'll have little pieces of eggshells forever. Unfortunately. But you can compost them. They're totally fine to compost. A great calcium additive for your garden after you spread your compost. You do not. You do not have to rinse them. Do not put eggs in your compost. Eggshells unrinsed, fine. Again, the chicken nuggets, the same thing will happen with your eggs. So don't do it.
So when I do my eggshells, basically, like I basically eat 2 eggs every day. So I crack my eggs and I take them, and then I take my hand, I scrunch it, and I just dump it right in. So then it breaks it up right then.
Yes.
My husband has a whole method. He used to collect them, and I'm like, oh, just break them right as you put them into the bin. Then you don't
And
have
it
to
gets
worry.
on your hands, and that's yucky.
Well, you already have to wash them.
True.
So like you already cracked your egg, smush it, wash your hands, and go back to cooking your eggs. It's done.
I love that. Yeah. So again, same with chopping up your vegetables. Crush up your eggshells. Otherwise, you will get nowhere with them.
I mean, if you don't.
I just have something about the expiration date that might take it off of you, which is that a really good source for a general idea of how long things might be okay after an expiration date would be to go to the regional food bank site, and they have suggestions for how long you can use all sorts of products for people who are providing food in the community with their food. Yeah, so like a can with X amount of sodium content or sugar can be kept for X number of months, so or days after whatever. So that's helpful.
Beautiful. Yes, that's amazing. Thank you. That's awesome. Yeah, our food banks. I mean, when we think about, oh no, now I'm blinking. ISLR, the Institute of Self-Reliance, something like that. They have a really awesome pyramid for when we talk about food waste. So up top is, feeding humans, and then we have feeding animals, and then we have composting. It's basically a way of breaking down that hierarchy of what should we prioritize before we even throw things away. Think about your food banks first. If it's actually useful food, bring it there first before you compost. Yeah, shall we talk about these guys?
Did anybody else have any other questions?
Oh, sure.
I'll ask 4 if I can.
Oh, goodness gracious.
The carbon in your
Yes.
compost, don't compost.
These guys?
Yep.
The filters?
Yep. You're
Yeah.
making waste.
No,
Okay.
we're not.
So you're making waste.
We are making waste.
Okay. Spaghetti with sauce.
Good to go.
And then paper and coffee.
Meat sauce. Sorry. Yes, that was good.
Okay.
I'm vegetarian. Sometimes I forget. I'm so sorry. Yes. All right.
And then
Oh, hey.
paper and coffee grounds are green or brown.
They are paper's brown, coffee grounds are green. Are you done? That was it? That was so quick. Oh my gosh. I was nervous. There you had me nervous. Please state your question into the microphone.
What is should I be concerned if there's insect larvae in the compost as it develops?
Should you be concerned if there's insect larvae in your compost? It's like music to my ears. You should be celebrating. It means you're creating a beautiful environment for all beings of life. Insects are normal. Creepy crawlers are normal. The amount of centipedes I've screeched and brushed off me is uncountable. Yeah. Yeah.
Like macaroni salad, so if you have something like the dressing.
Yeah. It's up to you the risk you want to take. Are there eggs in your macaroni salad?
It's just mayo.
Mayo,
Mayo has it.
small amounts.
I think you're okay.
I think you're okay. If you're throwing away an entire bowl of macaroni salad with mayo, probably not. It's dependent on your nose.
So if you use one of these and you're having trouble with squirrels, you can, the paper, like the bags that you can put your leaves in, you can line it around it. It does cut down on the air that goes through it, but you can line it, and that prevents maybe the smell getting out to the squirrels. I haven't had that much trouble, but I haven't had them trying to eat it. And I have a lot of squirrels, and chipmunks and a hedgehog and and a wild turkey. And so
Are you in Niskayuna? Yeah. Okay.
So yeah. So but they haven't tried to eat this yet. But
Yeah, this is if you get up here eventually you'll feel it. It's a little different than these are very different materials. This might be a little tougher for them to chew through, thankfully. And skunks.
I don't really anyways, we don't have to go by ours. But anyways, okay.
Okay, so all right, so this is an earth machine. These guys are, earlier I was having such a hard time getting it open. I'm gonna leave that to you. They break into 2 components, which is really nice. This bottom part is actually a door where you can get finished compost out. The doors are separate, so make sure if you get one of these, you don't leave without the door. These guys, yeah, otherwise you'll just be throwing stuff out into your yard essentially. So let's get a door on there. And then the top part comes off so you can kind of access everything, especially when you're emptying it. It's really helpful. There we go.
So it does, it's made to lock.
So
Yes.
obviously you're going to take it in 3 parts, and then when you put it together, you use the screws that are in with this, and then you start composting this way. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm not talking.
Play the screws again.
Okay, so it comes in 3 parts. All right, you're going to put this together like this, and then there are the screws, and you're going to use the screws, and and then the door goes on, and then you'll take this off and put it in. It's pretty simple.
They're keys. They're key screws too. They're like big plastic ones. They're not like, you don't need a drill. So yeah, the Earth Machine is it's a really good one if you don't want. So this one's open and you'll see that, but this one's closed. The only downside of the Earth Machine is you really do have to turn it because there is very little airflow to it. Nothing wrong with it. It'll work. It'll do the job. You really have to be turning it, either pitchfork, shovel. If you get an aerator or if you buy an aerator, they're like $40 online. Questions? I can repeat it, Mickey, if that helps. What's that? How often do we recommend turning? It depends on your pile. So I recommend turning like every other week. People swear by like once a month. It's really depending on, is your pile heating up? Does it look like things are breaking down? If not, you're going to want to get in there and get some air in there. If it looks like it's breaking down, give it a minute, you know? So I do once a month at our community compost. It's a little bit bigger than this guy. You could probably get away with, during the summer when things are really cooking, you probably want to get in there a little bit more. Can you overturn it? You can overturn it. Takes a lot of muscle to do that. But if things are heating up, and you go to turn it, you don't want to turn it too often because then you're letting some of the heat escape. So what's that?
110, right? Is when it started.
About 110. You want to maintain it at about 110 degrees for a thermometer is helpful. I try to make this like as easy as possible. You don't need all these tools, right? You can throw it in a pile on the ground and it'll be fine. But yes, you want to, when you turn it, you want to see steam. Yes. You don't need to be at, 110 for this long. If it's breaking down, your eyes are your best guide for this. If you can see it turning into, if you're not seeing discernible food scraps, you're doing great. So there's a question back here. How thorough do you need to be turning it? It's another great question. Yes. So that's why the aerators are really, really, really helpful. So the aerators, are you going to model it? Just give it a good spin. So you stick that guy in there, you basically screw it all the way in, and then you yank it. It all takes a little bit of muscle. I have to call a neighbor. But yeah.
These are lovely. Like these are life changing.
They are.
These are life changing.
Yeah.
I was using a pitchfork for years, and then I got one of these, and my husband was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
like, these are amazing."
They're life changers.
So if you don't get one here, you can always buy one.
It's worth it to buy one of these because you can get it nice and deep. You can get and yeah, definitely an aerator. But a shovel will work. The other thing, if you can't get all the way, the height issue, I can't get all the way in there. You can stick like a shovel or pitchfork and really just wiggle it. You're not necessarily needing to turn it. Turning is just another way for saying like aerating your pile. So you want to aerate it. That's really the point. Just get air in there somehow. You don't need to pick it up and turn the whole thing over. Yeah, you can absolutely put pizza boxes in there. Yeah, if you shred everything up, you just don't want to put big chunks of things, right? But yeah, sometimes if there's totally fine. Yeah, should not be an issue.
So as you said earlier, we have like 10 months of winter here.
We do. It's always winter here.
So, you can't really turn your compost in winter.
Right, mine froze this winter. Yeah,
So,
for lots of months.
but you still can put the food scraps out there.
Yeah.
But you don't really have
I
any
keep a
brown or brown stuff to put
I
on
take
top.
one bag of leaves,
Okay.
and I put my compost in, and I throw a handful of leaves all winter long.
Okay.
And then at the end, when it comes out, I drag it outside, stir it a couple times, and then start and add it to whatever I have outside.
That makes sense. Good.
Yeah, it's another reason to keep your carbon input high because the wet material will freeze really easily. So make sure as soon as you dump it in, you're putting in wood chips. just keep stacking. When spring comes, our piles, as soon as that really warm snap came a couple weeks ago, our pile temperature shot up like 30, 40 degrees, like in no time. So it doesn't take much to thaw it out and get it going again. Shall we build a geobin? Sure.
How about ash from like your fireplace or wood stove?
It's a great question. I say yes, depending on the source. Might see different things. We don't accept it at the community compost just because people tend to have it in large quantities. So if you're filling your compost with that, I'd probably try to like vary it. It should be fine. Oh yes. Sorry. Thank you, Laura. Yes. Wood ash from a fire, right? Should be fine. Heard it here, folks. You can call me if I'm wrong. I would say in varying qualities. Yeah. Quantities. That's where I think that's where the issue is like, is it a brown? Is it a green? Unclear. It should be fine to compost and break down. It should be considered a brown because it came from carbon source. So, right. Yeah. So try to keep your quantities, try to vary it. Keep your compost on its toes. You know what I mean?
So I think it's pretty self-explanatory. You
It
can
absolutely
open it up
is.
as big or as small as you want.
Yeah. So it can be, the geobin can be as big. It can really, I mean, if I'm remembering correctly, it could be from like Ellen to myself, like very big, or you can make it as big as this or smaller. So yeah, we use ones at the community compost. I've got some curing. I've got them set up pretty much as big as this guy. But in the children's garden, my coworker uses it. And it's like very small for the little kids. They don't fill it up too much, but she wants to show them like the act of composting. So these aren't really compost in there, but they throw it in there anyway. It's very cute. Yeah. How do we do?
I think we did really well.
Okay.
I think we're good.
All right.
So,
Aw, thanks, guys.
so I do not, my geobin, I just put it on the ground.
Yeah.
Because you can move it and
You're so good.
You don't have, you can just put it on the ground. You don't need to,
No need to-
no burying, no. I haven't had any trouble.
No. And there's little keys in there. Make sure you use
Yeah.
the keys to really secure it, the sides.
Completed compost out of it.
Yes.
I just pick it up.
Yeah, what's on the bottom?
You get the completed compost out by literally lifting it up or undoing the keys and unwrapping it. So basically with all compost bins, just as like an FYI, you're going to probably be filling for months or even a year, and then you're going to let it cure. So you might want to start a second pile. You might want to just pause for a second, but you're going to have to let it cure, and then you'll be able to, I mean, you could get a little sneaky peek and
graduate
like
to a new
lift it
one.
up. Yes.
You'll be
Yes.
like, oh, that's full. I need to get another one. And you have
Once
to
you
figure out-
realize, yeah.
This is just sort of like to get you out the door. So
You're going to be
So
experts
how
after
many
this.
does each of you have going at one time right now?
I have 4. I have 4. I have 4 compost bins. I have, well, I have my garden on a different property. Does that count? So at home, I've got 2. That's it. Don't come at me.
I only have 2. I have one. I have one that's cooking and one that's we're working
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Not like
Yeah.
2. Yeah. But then I also run like 7 in Schenectady. It's an addiction. It's fine. Timing. Yeah.
It seems like you would fill up that bin very quickly.
You'd be surprised because things actively start breaking down as you're putting it in. Yeah. So we had the community compost. We started, dumping everybody's compost in. It was like over the top. We came back a week later to do it again, and it was already below. It starts breaking down, especially now that we're in the summer. You're coming in at a great time to start. So it'll start breaking down as you put stuff in. You'll see it going
And it's in
down.
a real, and also if it's in a really hot spot in your, that will that'll, if it's in a under tree, if it's way back and it's under a lot of shade, it'll take a little longer. So that makes a difference.
Not at home. No, it won't get too hot. No. Should we wrap up this? And I'm hanging out. I'm not going anywhere. So you can like find me, and then you want to say how we're gonna do this?
Yeah. So thank you very much for coming. We're going to have you, I think we're going to stop recording, right? and we're going to have you come up and we're going to have you fill out the compost pledge. We'll give everyone a chance to do that. And then you can grab your counter bin, and then you can come over here and you can either get the geo bin or the earth machine. And if you decide that you're going to take the geo bin, then you can be put into a raffle for one of the stirrers. We didn't have enough for everybody, so we're if you can be put into a raffle for that. Okay. So not everybody did. So yeah.
We only have 11 of the birth machines, so it's kind of like
If you
do it works for your property. So if you have a big property, we're asking if people
yeah.
save it like the cheapest in that small area. You don't have to keep it on.
Okay. I think we're done, right? We're off the air.
Thanks for
Okay.
the wonderful talk.